So yesterday I spoke to you about digital signatures. Before that I discussed one of the most important methods of information security, namely firewalls. I have described to you several kinds of firewalls. Then yesterday I talked to you about digital signatures, the types of digital signatures, how do we get one, how do we store one, how do we export a digital signature from one device to another, how do we use it to sign a document, and how do we verify it. All that we have covered yesterday. Now today, hopefully, it will be the last class for Unit 5 summary. So I am talking about the security techniques for information security. One very important technique, which is many times ignored also, is the physical security of data on the devices. Now, all the data that our company has, all the information which our company keeps, is ultimately kept on a solid state disk. There is no other way. So it can be on a device which is within my premises, or it can be a device which is in the cloud. That means it is in a data center. In both the cases, the data is on a solid state disk. What happens if this solid state disk gets corrupted? And it can happen. I have seen it happening practically. Solid state disks are preferred today because they are very compact. They occupy minimum space. But they also have a weakness. They have a vulnerability. They are very sensitive to spikes in voltage and variations in voltage. My practical experience shows that any serious fluctuation in the voltage or a spike in the voltage has a capacity to totally corrupt our solid state disk. So how do we take care of this? A firewall cannot handle this. Digital signature cannot handle this. This is a very fundamental problem of keeping the data secure. For that, at the data center level, we have to use RAID. The word RAID is very common in Income Tax Department. It is used by Enforcement Directorate also. They raid the film stars, they raid the opposition party leaders, but here the RAID meaning is different. In information security, RAID means redundant array of independent disks. How do they work? That concept I would like you to understand. There are two methods of implementing RAID. One is called mirroring. That means for the entire disk, we create a mirror image on a separate disk. This is a very foolproof method because if the data on the original disk is corrupted, the probability that both the disks will be corrupted at the same time is quite less. Generally, only one of them will get corrupted at one time. Second one may also get corrupted, but at a different time. So, if one gets corrupted and your data is available fully on the mirror disk, then you have not lost any information. But this has got an overhead in this. The overhead is every read and write operation, not every read, every write operation on the disk is to be duplicated. The writing is to be done on first disk as well as on the mirror disk. This consumes lot of resources in a data center on the processor and on the direct memory access processor. There is a separate processor for direct memory access. So on the main processor and on the DMA processor, it adds additional workload. So a simpler method is not to have a mirror disk, but to have a separate parity disk. In this, we don't create an image of the entire disk. For every byte, we store only the parity information in the second disk. That will be very less. The data volume will be very less. With that, the benefit is that the bytes in the main disk which get corrupted can be easily corrected by checking the parity information. The secret in this protection technology lies in the probability of multiple bits in a byte getting corrupted is very low. The maximum probability happens that in a particular byte, one bit only may get corrupted at a time. And when one bit is corrupted, parity information is enough to correct it. So this is a kind of cheaper method for implementing RAID. This is a very fundamental kind of security which should be implemented at the data center level. Next we talk about the authentication methods. Two terms are used very commonly together. They are authorization and authentication. Authorization means first time when a user is signed up, then a user ID is created. And authentication means whenever that user is logging in again, we have to somehow make sure that the user is correct. Many websites, they just rely even today on only a password. But password is not a very secure method. I have explained earlier also. Shoulder surfing can be done by somebody standing behind me. And passwords are generally quite easy to guess also. Because most of the people, they keep their password as their name or their nickname or their friend's name or their date of birth or their favorite food or their pet's name. So if you know the person well enough, it is possible to guess the password also. So we insist that the password should be more complicated. You should make it more complicated by adding capital letters, special characters and all that. All that is fine, but still password is only one level of protection. A much better method is two-factor authentication. In two-factor authentication, we don't rely on a single method of authentication, that is password. We also insist on one additional method. That one additional method can be an OTP, which can be sent to the registered mobile number or registered email ID. This is being followed nowadays by Gmail and also by Hotmail, and banks are also following OTP. However, even this is not totally foolproof because SIM can always be cloned and the website will not know when my SIM has been cloned. OTP on email ID can also be compromised because that password can also get leaked. Therefore, a much stronger method is biometric authentication. This is certainly a much more reliable technique. So in your unit number 5 syllabus, biometric techniques are specifically mentioned. Biometric techniques depend upon some characteristic of our body which is checked to identify whether the user is the same one. The easiest in this is the fingerprint authentication. Fingerprint scanner is a very small device, this much size, and it is quite cheap. In less than 1000 rupees, we can get a fingerprint scanner. So it is attached to the device which you want to use for authentication, or it may be built into that, and then at the time of authentication, you are required to enter the password and also scan your finger. This is one method. This has been compromised also about 2 years ago when biometric authentication with fingerprints was introduced in JNTU Hyderabad. So in JNTU Hyderabad, they introduced biometric authentication for students. Students don't want to come to college. Here you can see out of 60, 58 are absent today. Only 2 are sitting here. So they are also students, have the same mentality. They wanted to avoid classes. So they caught hold of one researcher who created a fake finger using latex. Latex is a material, very nice, soft, supple material. So he created a technique by which he scans your finger once and puts the same pattern on the finger made with latex, and he sells you that finger for about 6,000 rupees. Then whenever you are not willing to come to college, you can give that finger to your friend. That finger can be used to authenticate you. So this method has already been broken by students, your friends. So today, even fingerprint scanning is not considered very foolproof. Incidentally, this was done in Hyderabad, JNTU Hyderabad. That man was caught also. He was removed from JNTU job, and he was, I think, later put in jail also or something, because he is trying to compromise the security of information. So a much better method is retina scan, because so far no instance has come that the retina image has been made on some other material. So far it has not come. Maybe someday even that will be done, but right now we can say retina scan is quite reliable. Another biometric technique is voice identification. Many new laptops, including Apple laptops, they work with voice authentication. So when you open the laptop, when you are trying to start it, the laptop says hello. Now what will be our tendency? We want to reply to that. That's a normal human behavior. So when the laptop says hello, you may say hello, good morning, or hello, please open the documents folder, something like that you will say. So you have used your voice, and every voice has a different pitch, frequency and modulation, which has already been recorded. So with voice recognition also, we can do authentication. Another very important method is face recognition. Face recognition is quite a nice method, and you may be aware that Airports Authority of India has already started using that. So first time when you enter the airport after introduction of face recognition, your face is scanned once, and that is linked to your identity, that is Aadhaar card or some other ID card. The next time when you come to the same airport or a different airport, because all the airports share the data, so next time when you enter any airport in India, then your face is scanned at the security itself. Now you don't have to go to check-in counter for authenticating yourself. You can directly book the checked-in luggage. After doing that, you will go to the security gate. There he need not again verify your boarding pass. Or even if he checks the boarding pass, it is only to verify that okay, you have a boarding pass, that's all. But he need not check your identity again. And whether that identity matches with the boarding pass, he need not check all that. The camera, which is for face recognition, will automatically do that. Now this is an authentication technique which is very nice, because even if you try to hide your face or change your face in some manner by putting on a cap, wearing goggles, growing a moustache, Pehlwan moustache, growing a beard, whatever you do, face can still be recognized. It doesn't compare the image of the face. It has already calculated some vectors in your face geometry. Those vectors will not change. You grow a beard, still the distance between your eyes remains same. You wear a cap, even then the angle between your eye and tip of the nose remains same. So facial recognition doesn't capture your image and then try to compare the images. It calculates certain vectors in your face and uses those vectors for recognition. So this is much more reliable, and another advantage is that the data which is stored in an image occupies more storage area, more storage space, whereas vectors information occupies much less. So it's a very efficient method. So facial recognition can also be used for biometric authentication. But all these methods fail if the person has died. When a person dies, within a few minutes after that, the body characteristics start changing. Retina pattern will change. Fingerprints will also change because fingers become swollen. After death, fingers start swelling. And if you leave a dead body in that place without burial or without cremation for about 2 days, you will find the whole body turns to a different color and shape of every limb changes. We are in a perfect shape only as long as we are alive. Once the person is dead, the body features start changing very, very fast. So we need authentication even sometimes after a person is dead. For example, when a murder has taken place, we would like to identify where are the bones of that person. Or on the weapon which has been used for beheading, there may be blood marks, and we would like to verify that the blood tallies with the victim. For such things, the only biometric method which works is the ultimate biometric method, that is DNA fingerprinting. It is very expensive. I mean, you can't do it as simply as fingerprint scanning or retina scanning. This requires very detailed biological analysis in a laboratory, but this is the ultimate in biometric authentication techniques, which works whether the person is alive or dead. This is such a powerful method that it can be used even for determining the parentage of a person. There was a very classic case of a great politician, Congress politician, Mr. Narayan Dutt Tiwari. I don't know whether you will remember the name. Narayan Dutt Tiwari was the former Chief Minister of Uttar Pradesh. And one lady made allegations against him that he made me pregnant and I have a son from him. So how to prove that? How to disprove that? Tiwari was a very powerful man, very rich man. So proving was done with DNA fingerprinting, that this son belongs to Tiwari only. And ultimately, you know what happened? Narayan Dutt Tiwari had to marry that woman. It was a victory of technology and a victory of law and a victory of women's empowerment. right? So ultimate biometric authentication technique which works even when a person is dead is DNA fingerprinting. So these are the techniques we have to use for security. Now I would also like to tell you something about the cyber laws in India. You will be proud to know that India was the 7th country in the world which had enacted cyber laws. There are only 6 countries before us who enacted cyber laws. USA was the first. After that there were 5 more. And then India was the 7th country in the world which enacted cyber laws. Our main law for cyber security is called Information Technology Act 2000. 2000 is the year in which this act was passed. So this act has got various provisions, but the most important provision is that it recognizes electronic transactions as valid. Without this act being in place, if you carry out a transaction by electronic means in which there is no paper, no ink signature, court will not give any importance to that. Court says, show me the evidence that there is a contract. But this act made it possible to enter into contracts and do the transactions without using any paper and pen. So that was one main contribution of this act. In this act, there are provisions for cyber security also. One interesting section is the section number 43. Section number 43 is applicable to those people who damage the computer systems and those who damage the software or data in the computer systems. So, under this act, section 43, such people can be booked as criminals and they can be punished. There is another section also which talks about dishonesty and fraud in electronic transactions. That section is called section 66. So under that section, in an electronic transaction, if a person has done some fraud, he can be booked as a criminal. Then Indian Penal Code, IPC 1980, now also identifies the cyber crimes as punishable crimes. So after this IT Act came, it was linked to the Indian Penal Code also. Earlier, before that, Indian Penal Code will not recognize a cyber crime. It will not have any provisions for cyber crime. But after 2000, when this Information Technology Act came, Indian Penal Code was also modified accordingly, and they were able to now treat cyber criminals as criminals. And similar things were done in the Companies Act also. Companies Act of 2013 also has provisions which can recognize cyber crimes. So we will stop the class here.